I want to talk to you a little bit about non-competes and how they work. I'm not an attorney. I'm Tony Bishop. I'm the owner of Connexa Search Group. So you always want to seek legal advice, but this question comes up. I've been doing this for 18 years. This question comes up all the time, and I wanted to give you my summary of 18 years of knowledge dealing with non-competes. This is really focused for sales reps. This is we'll do another presentation for non-sales people. But it's, most likely is usually when you encounter non-competes, most of the time it's for salespeople. All right, so here's a first big premise, is that if you leave your current company and you go to a company that sells competitive products and you financially damage your old company. In other words, if you go and convert those customers that you gained for them while you were working for them, and you go to another company and you take those same customers to your new company within the time period on your non-compete, usually it's 12 months, then you have financially damaged your previous employer. And if that's, the attorneys I talk to say that nothing happens until you financially damage. So let's look at it a little bit more in detail. So company A is the company you work for. Company B is the company you're going to work for. You changed and you're working for company B now. Company A, you go and you take clients or business from company A and bring it to company B. That is actually, as soon as the first dollar transacts with your new company, then you have financially damaged your previous employer, and then your previous employer could come after you for your non-compete, because the only way that it is that you violated is if there is a financial damage to your previous employer. Now, if you went and if you went to company B and you didn't call on your same customers, let's say even though they sold a competing product, let's say you had a different territory, or let's say you stayed away from your previous clients with company A and you didn't bother them for the time period on the non-compete, let's say for 12 months, then you have not financially damaged your previous employer, and it would be very hard for the previous employer to really go after you with an injunction, meaning to try to stop you from working for company B. So that's the strictest sense of a non-compete. In general, judges don't like them. They don't uphold them very often, not unless you just do something real blatant. Then most of the time you're okay. But there again, I'm not an attorney, so you always have to seek the advice of an attorney. You're the one who signed the non-compete, so you're the one that your previous company would come after if you violated it. It's not the new employer you went to. It's not their responsibility. They didn't sign anything. You're the one who signed the non-compete. Now, a couple of things. Let's talk about non-competes in general. If they're very restrictive, then judges typically do not like to enforce them. So in other words, companies can go overboard by making them very restrictive. So let's say the duration of the non-compete is 24 months instead of 12. Sometimes I've seen that, and judges do not like that, and they usually will throw those out. So you're lucky if you signed a non-compete and it's very restrictive, such as a 24-month, or some statements like, hey, you can't work in the industry for 24 months, because judges realize that this is what you're an expert at, and that you have to make a living for you and your family, and that you need to work, and so they usually don't restrict you from working. So, so very restrictive non-competes, where they long time frames, 24 months, statements like you can't work in the industry, those usually get thrown out. So just be aware of that. Other things as far as non-competes that make them not valid, let's say you work for a company and other reps before you had left that company to go to competitors of theirs, and let's say your company didn't pursue them. Let's say there was never a letter sent to them, they never pursued them, and if there's a history of that, then they can't selectively decide who they want to go pursue. So in other words, if you leave that same company and they come after you, but they didn't come after your peers, then, and if you have evidence of that, then obviously a judge would throw that out, saying, hey, you can't be selective. You can't choose who you're going to enforce the non-compete on. So let's say, 3 or 4 people leave, and let's say maybe they're not as good as you. Maybe they're lower tier performers, but you're the top tier performer, and they choose to go after you. That's actually discrimination. They can't do that. They've got to have a history of going after everybody. So that's another thing to look out for. Is kind of the history of what your company has done. And there's certain companies that they have non-competes, but they don't really enforce them, and you can kind of tell, especially recruiters in a certain industry, they can tell you what they've seen. Now there again, you always have to get legal advice, but recruiters can kind of tell you, hey, this company never seems to go after anybody who leaves, and they don't really enforce their non-compete. So something to keep an eye out on as well. Okay, so other things about non-competes. In non-competes also, you're going to have things like electronic data transfer. There's a statement in there basically, usually in most non-competes, that say, basically what it is do not steal information from your previous employer. So if you have a company laptop, or even if you don't have a company laptop, if you transfer data from that laptop to a flash drive, some kind of external drive, then you violated your electronic data capture part of your non-compete. Most of them have it in there. Be careful with that one. That's actually a federal offense. Judges will uphold that more than anything. So just don't take information from your previous employer. That's theft, and that will get you in a lot of trouble. And one thing too, I know a lot of people say, well, hey, I deleted all the files and there's no trace. That's not true. With computers, there's forensic guys who can go back to your company laptop and they can see everything you've done, no matter if you've deleted or not. There's, I suppose, meta traces of data that they can pull up and see what you've done. So electronic data transfer is illegal. Do not do it. That will get you in a lot of trouble. Non-solicitation is usually on there. If you're a manager, sometimes I'll have a non-solicitation, so you can't go and take the sales reps that work for you or any employee that work for you for a period of time. You don't see that one as much, but you definitely have to be aware that you don't want to go and get in trouble for recruiting people who work for you. There's other ways to do that. So that part you have to be very careful with as well. Now, let's talk a little bit about, let's say you're a sales rep and you are going to a competitive company, a company that sells the exact same thing. Then you have to be careful with the customers you call on. So if you have maybe you get a bigger territory with the company you're going to, and you can leave your old clients alone. That's probably the best thing to do for a period of year. Just don't call on them. Don't try to convert that business, and they really don't have a leg to stand on. If you're going to a company, let's say you're in diagnostics and you're selling, I don't know, let's say you're selling point of care equipment into the critical care units in the hospital, like the ICU, OR, ER, but you're leaving a company that sells capital equipment only to the hospital laboratory, let's say chemistry analyzers, then that you're probably not violating your non-compete there because the products are not similar. So there again, you got to seek the advice of an attorney. I'm just trying to give you a general overview. For the most part, we really don't see a whole lot of people being pursued for violating their non-competes. You just have to be smart about it and not be blatant about it and not take business from your current company. That's the main thing. I hope that helps. This is just a general overview to kind of help you get a sense for non-compete. Sometimes even a recruiter who's been in the business a long time can kind of look at it and give you an idea of how restrictive it is. But the best thing to do is call a labor attorney, get them to help you, get them to review your non-compete, and let them give you advice on what to do.